Good evening again, YouTube. It's your guy J Crew to you coming at you here on Friday, July 2nd, 2021. Bringing you another video here to my channel in regards to another legal development that's taking place in the world of entertainment. As you know, the last video that I posted not too long ago was regarding the release of Mr. Bill Cosby. And this story actually happened within the last few weeks, and I'm fixing to talk about now. And some of you may be familiar with the person that I'm speaking on. Some of you may not be familiar with the person I'm speaking on. The person I'm speaking on uh, is a gentleman by the name of McKinley Phipps Jr., who was best known as the rapper Mac back in the late 2000s when he was on the label No Limit Records, which was owned and managed by Master P. For anybody who followed No Limit Records like in the late 1990s, uh, they were this incredible success story, being that they were a label that was based out of Louisiana. They were a Southern rap label, and they had just seemingly an endless amount of artists and signed to their label. I mean, no, of course, Master P owned and operated No Limit Records at its height, and his brothers were employed there as artists. Just various people from Louisiana became artists on No Limit, and and that may be the reason why artists such as McKinley Phipps Jr., also known as Mac, maybe got lost in the shuffle back then. Mac was probably in his early 20s at the time when he became known as a rapper on at No Limit Records, and let me kind of use that term very loosely in terms of known. Um, Back in the late 1990s, I myself was going through my high school years, and me and most of my friends, with us being Southern, of course, as you can probably tell by my accent, we were heavily into No Limits music. We were young, listen to anything that sounded rebellious. And No Limit was just a label that we really followed like nobody's business. I mean, it seemed like everything they came out with and almost seemed like a hit record, even though when you really look at it, it wasn't. I mean, they got to a point at No Limit, they were releasing records once every month, it seemed like, once every month or 2 months. That's how much content they put out. And one of the people that was on the label at his time in his heyday was this gentleman by the name of Mac. Mac, probably his most known album was an album called Shell Shock, where he releases a solo album, I believe back in maybe like 98, 99, somewhere around there. And I got to admit, even though I was in the No Limits music, Mac really wasn't an artist that I followed like that. Even like back then, even in his heyday, it's like I had heard of him, but I had listened to some of his album, and it really just didn't grab me like that back then. I guess I was used to listen to guys like Master P, of course, the owner of No Limit, his brothers Silk the Shocker and C Murder, and another gentleman by the name of Mystical that I know y'all probably heard of. Those were some of the more well-known artists on No Limit, as well as they had this group. They had Master P and his brothers, and they called TRU, short for which stands for the Real Untouchables. I was used to listening to groups like that, but like I said, they had a bunch of more artists, and Mac to me just kind of flew under the radar. I just didn't really his music didn't grab me like that back then, and so unfortunately, I didn't really get a chance to enjoy, his lyricism, because years later, when I've gone back and listened to some of his stuff, it was a bit better than what I thought it was back then, but still, I think he was in the phase where he was growing as an artist on No Limit. He really wasn't a guy that really, seemed like he was just a artist that was just like you had to have his music. He was still growing, and again, he was in his early 20s when he was releasing this stuff on No Limit. And it was sad because when you go back and listen to his stuff, you could tell that he had lyrics in his music. He really could rap. Off of that Shell Shock album, he had a song called that was called My Brother, and I really love that song. It had a nice little laid back beat to it. He's being very, very lyrically proficient on that cut. And this is a nice cut to listen to. And I think he would have learned to make more hits like that had he had a chance to grow as an artist, no limit. But as I came into the entry into the video saying there was a development in Mac's life that really altered the course of his being. He basically was scheduled to perform at a nightclub one night, I believe in 2000, and what happened was some kind of fight broke out. And in the fight, there was a gentleman by the name of Baron Victor Jr. that was killed. And I believe the gentleman was maybe 19 at the time. And Mac was unfortunately convicted of it. And so, obviously, given that he was convicted of manslaughter, he was given a 30-year sentence. And this gentleman probably was like, what, 23, 22 at the time was Mac. So imagine what that could do to somebody and you're convicted that young of a crime in your life. The thing about it with Mac was, over the years, there's been a lot of people that come out and say that he did not do that. He wasn't responsible for it. I know over the past several years, I've seen different specials where people have interviewed Mac over the phone. His family was interviewed, and they said that during the course of this altercation that took place, Mac did pull a gun, but he only pulled a gun in self-defense. Keep in mind, he was scared to perform there. And this fight broke out, and he wanted to make sure that nobody came at him with nothing. Because from what I understood, he had nothing to do with the fight, but he wanted to make sure nobody really, came and struck him or attacked him. So he did pull a weapon, but he reportedly he never fired it, according to Mac and people that he knows. They say he never fired it. Well, over the years, there have been some people who have backed up Mac's story in different ways. I mean, there was a bodyguard that confessed, I believe, to shooting this young man by the name of Baron C. Victor. There were witnesses that came forward and said they were coerced to identify Mac as a shooter by local authorities, including the prosecutors. And so these developments have taken place over the past, a few decades since his conviction. And it really kind of calls into question, again, the justice system, as it is. And, like I said, within the last few weeks, Mac had just, I think, completed his 21st year of a 30-year sentence, and he was granted parole from that manslaughter conviction. I believe during his time of incarceration, he's at least had one son, I believe, that I know of. I don't know if he's had any more children, but he's at least had one son. So this gentleman has missed a lot of time. Keep in mind, just think about if you were taken off the streets in 2000 or 2001, and all of a sudden you're let back onto the streets in 2021. Just think about all the technological developments that have taken place. Like you see, of course, his child has grown up in that time. Family members probably have died within that time period. That's a lot of time to be taken off the streets, man. And it was just tragic. Like if this brother didn't do that he was just falsely convicted. That is just sad. Keep in mind that No Limit, man, that record label, some of their artists have had some issues. Like keep in mind another one, the gentleman that I mentioned, who was a part of that label, Masterpiece brother, Corey Miller, also known as C Murder. He was convicted, I believe, of second-degree murder, I believe. And he was convicted of shooting some dude in the nightclub. And it was said that maybe C Murder didn't have nothing to do with that, with the shooting itself in terms of actually pulling the trigger, but he was nevertheless convicted. Also, another gentleman that I mentioned named Mystical. I believe after Mystical left No Limit, he got on Job Records. He was convicted of some kind of sexual assault case. So their artists on that label have had a lot of issues, and just in general, rappers seem to have a lot of things they're gonna have to face out here in the world once they decide to embark on that career, man. Because they may be only entertainers on the surface, but some of these guys, they get into situations that just kind of turn their lives upside down. I mean, just in recent months and years, I mean, there have been several different rappers that have been shot and killed, seem like every other month. Most notably, Pop Smoke, a New York rapper, I think was killed early last year, I believe, late last year. A gentleman by the name of King Von out of Chicago, he was killed. And so rappers tend to seem to have to go through a lot of stuff. They picked that career. It just is a entertainment subgenre that is just rife with danger and angst. And you just gotta pray for some of these guys because they probably just want to come out and entertain people with their music, but they end up having these legal cases that just turn their life upside down. And going back to Mac, and not to belabor the point too much, I mean, um, he made statements that he said now that he's like in his early to mid 40s, he didn't mention nothing about still rapping, which is a very understandable. That's probably just kind of calm and gone on him. That ship is sailed for Mac. He's an older gentleman. He said he just wanted to get out, help out with some of his mother's businesses, and probably just work as a painter for one of his friends' construction businesses. So I would like to say congratulations to Mac on being granted parole from your conviction. If you were unjustly convicted, may God bless your spirit with peace and forgiveness so you can move on in your life with your family. She got J. Crew to you. If you like the content, please hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. Just wrapping another video up for you all, man. We're going to keep the videos coming. Y'all have a good one.